The Dragon protocol is a four-state update protocol. The four states are exclusive, or E. This is the same as in messy. The copy is clean and no other processor has it cached. Shared clean, or SC. This is similar to S in our invalidation protocols, except that the block is definitely held in more than one cache, and the current processor was not the last processor to write the block. Shared modified, or SM. The block is shared and the current processor was the last processor that wrote to the block. This processor is called the owner. Unlike in one of our invalidation protocols, a shared block doesn't necessarily have to be up to date in main memory, but the processor in state SM is responsible for updating memory when it has to get rid of the block. The block can be in state SM in one cache and SC in other caches with at most one SM. If the block is replaced in the cache, SC doesn't have to flush it to memory, but SM does. Modified, or M. This is the same as in the invalidation protocols. Only one processor has the block cached, and it has been written to since being brought in from memory. Note that there is no invalid state in an update protocol because blocks are never invalidated. Of course, there are some blocks that are not cached, and these blocks can be considered to be invalid, but this is not shown in the state transition diagrams. Instead of showing blocks as moving out of the invalid state, we introduce two new processor events, processor read miss and processor write miss. They tell what to do if a block is referenced that is not in the cache. There is also a new bus transaction, bus update. This is what actually performs the update, sending a word written by one processor to all of the other caches that have the block cached. Here are the four states in the diagram for processor-initiated transactions. When a processor read miss occurs and the line is not shared, it transitions into state E. When a processor read miss occurs and the line is shared, it transitions into state SC. When a processor write miss occurs and the line is shared, it transitions into state SM. This is because the referencing processor is the last one to have written the block. When a processor write miss occurs and the line is not shared, it transitions into state M. When there is a read hit, regardless of what state the line is in, there is no state change and no bus action. If the line is in state M and the processor writes the line, there's no state change either. But if the line's in state SM when a write occurs and the shared line is asserted, a bus update is generated to update the caches that are sharing the line. And if the line's in state SC when a write occurs but the shared line is not asserted, the cache transitions to state M. However, if the shared line is asserted, it transitions to state SM. Now, see if you can fill in the last two transitions. One of them is when a line is in state E when a write occurs. The other one is when a line is in state SM when the processor writes to it and the shared line is not asserted. Now let's look at the bus-initiated transitions. If a line is in state E and another processor reads it, it moves to state SC. If a line is in state M when another processor reads it, it flushes its data to memory and transitions to state SM. If it's in state SM when a bus read occurs, the same thing happens, it flushes its data to memory. If it's in SM and a bus update occurs, it transitions to SC because it's no longer the last processor to have written the line. It also updates its line accordingly. If it's in state SC when a bus read or a bus update occurs, it stays in state SC. In case of a bus update, it updates its line. We can put both processor-initiated and bus-initiated transitions together in the same diagram. Here, a vertical bar over an S indicates that the shared line is not asserted. When our animation starts, all caches are empty and the value of A in main memory is 1. Processor P1 reads A, but A is not yet cached. This induces a bus read transaction. The memory controller responds with a block. The block reaches P1's cache. The state of the line is set to E since the line has not been modified and is not held in any other cache. This completes the read operation. P1 then writes A, changing its value to 2. This is a cache hit, but the cache has to change state to M. No bus transaction occurs because a block in state E can't be held in any other cache. The write operation is complete. Now, P3 tries to read A. This causes a cache miss, so a bus read is issued. P1 snoops the read and changes its state to SM, because although P3 is reading the block, P1 is still the most recent processor to write the block. P1 flushes the block across the bus, where it is picked up by P3. Note that, unlike in the CSC protocol, main memory does not need to be updated because the cache in state SM is responsible for updating memory when it finally replaces the block. Then the read operation completes. Next, P3 writes A. This is a write hit, but because the line is shared, a bus update is needed. In the CSC protocol, we would have needed a bus upgrade, which would have invalidated P1's cache instead of updating it. The bus update is snooped by P1, which updates its cache. Meanwhile, P3's write completes, changing the cached value to 3. P3 changes the line state to SM since it's now the most recent writer of the line. And the write operation completes. Now, P1 reads the value of A from its cache. This is a read hit, so no bus activity is needed. In the invalidation protocols, it would have been a miss. The read operation is now complete. Now, P3 reads A from its cache. This is a cache hit, so the cache simply returns the data. No bus transaction takes place. The read operation completes. Now, P2 finally gets into the act by issuing a read for A. Since it's a cache miss, it requires a bus transaction, namely a bus read. P3 flushes the block out on the bus, where P2 picks it up. P3 is the one to do the flush because it's the cache in state SM. The read operation is complete. Now all three caches have valid copies of the block. All are in state SC except for P3, which was the most recent processor to write the line. Suppose P1 replaces the line containing A. No bus action is needed because its cache was in state SC. But if P3 replaces the line, it has to write it back to memory because it's in state SM. If the line were in state M when it was replaced, it'd also have to be written back. So a replaced line is flushed to memory when it was in state M or state SM. Contrast this with the invalidation protocols, which only needed to flush a line to memory when this line was in state M. This table shows which caches have the block in which state after each instruction. It also shows which bus action takes place. Note that there are no bus read X's. The difference between a bus read and a bus read X is that the latter invalidates sharers, but there are no invalidations in an update protocol. Note also that there is only one read from memory. In an update protocol, as long as the block is in some cache, the cache, not memory, is responsible for supplying the block. We've seen the difference between SM and SC. SM is responsible for updating memory when the line is replaced. But if main memory is always updated when a bus update transaction occurs, there's no need for a separate SM and SC state, and the protocol can get by with a single shared state. The downside is that this causes a lot more memory transactions. This can slow down the system, especially when a lot of processors are writing to the same memory. As we've just seen, the Dragon protocol allows an SC line to be replaced silently without any bus activity. If we did let other caches know when an SC line was to be replaced, they could test the shared line and move to state E if there were no other sharers. The advantage of being in state E is that if the line is later written, it goes to state M, where it doesn't have to generate bus update transactions. So, at the cost of broadcasting replacements of SC lines, we are able to avoid update transactions on lines that used to be shared but no longer are. And broadcasting replacements isn't time critical. If a cache doesn't process the replacement right away, there's no harm. On the other hand, if it doesn't process an update right away, it may end up doing updates out of order, which is a problem. So a three-state update protocol may have performance advantages. Another thing to note is that A cache can't update its local copy of a word and then request the bus to send out a bus update. If it does, then two caches could each update their local copy and then request the bus. They would then see the two writes in opposite orders, which would mess up serialization. We won't go through a detailed consideration of whether this protocol provides cache coherence and memory consistency. The argument would be very similar to the reasoning for write-through. The issue of updating a local cache before doing a bus update is a race condition. There are many race conditions in the protocols. We don't have time to consider all of them here.